Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and with me today is my amazing co-host, Julia. Hi, Julia.
Hi, Jason. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for today's episode because we're talking about something that many English learners struggle with: how to talk to anyone in English.
That's right. Have you ever wanted to start a conversation but felt too nervous or unsure of what to say? Maybe you worry about making mistakes, or you just don't know how to keep the conversation going.
Oh, I've definitely been there. I remember when I first started learning English, I would practice grammar and vocabulary a lot, but when it was time to actually talk to someone, I froze. I was too afraid of saying something wrong.
And that's so common. Many learners feel the same way. But here's the good news: you don't need perfect English to have a great conversation. Today, we'll show you how to talk to anyone in English with confidence.
Yes, we'll cover why people struggle, how to overcome fear, simple ways to start a conversation, and how to keep it going naturally. Plus, we'll share some common mistakes to avoid and tips to end a conversation politely.
So, whether you're at work, traveling, or just making friends, this episode will help you feel more comfortable speaking English with anyone.
Absolutely. And don't forget to stay with us till the end because we'll also share a simple exercise you can do every day to improve your speaking skills.
All right, let's get started. First, let's talk about why people struggle to talk to others in English and how to overcome those challenges. So, before we talk about how to start great conversations, let's first understand why many English learners struggle to talk to anyone in English. Julia, what do you think is the number one reason?
Oh, that's easy: fear of making mistakes. A lot of learners worry that they'll say something wrong, use incorrect grammar, or pronounce a word badly, and then people will judge them.
Yes, but here's the thing. Most people don't care if you make small mistakes. They're just happy that you're trying to communicate. Think about it. When someone speaks your native language with a few mistakes, do you judge them?
Not at all. In fact, I usually admire their effort, but when you're learning, that fear feels so real. Have you ever been in a situation where you were too afraid to speak?
Oh, absolutely. When I was learning Spanish, I used to overthink every sentence, and by the time I finally figured out what to say, the conversation had already moved on.
Exactly. That's another big struggle: overthinking. Many learners try to translate everything in their heads before speaking, and that slows them down. Instead of focusing on the conversation, they're busy worrying about grammar and vocabulary.
Right. And that brings us to another problem: lack of vocabulary. Sometimes people feel like they don't have enough words to express themselves, so they just stay quiet instead of trying to say something in a simple way.
Yes, but here's a secret: you don't need a big vocabulary to have a conversation. You just need to use the words you already know in a natural way. We'll talk more about this later.
Another reason people struggle is shyness and lack of confidence. Some learners feel too self-conscious and worry about what others will think of them.
That's a big one. I used to feel nervous talking to native speakers because I thought they would judge my accent. But guess what? Most people don't care about your accent at all.
Exactly. An accent is not a problem. It's a sign that you speak more than one language. That's something to be proud of.
One more thing: cultural differences. Some learners struggle because they don't know how to start conversations in English. Maybe in their culture, people don't use small talk as much, so they feel uncomfortable making casual conversation.
That's a great point. In English, small talk is really common, and it's an easy way to start conversations naturally. We'll go over some simple conversation starters in the next part.
Yes. So, to sum it up, people struggle with speaking English because of 1. Fear of making mistakes, 2. Overthinking and translating everything, 3. Lack of vocabulary, 4. Shyness and lack of confidence, 5. cultural differences in conversation styles.
But the good news is, all of these challenges can be overcome with practice and the right mindset. And that's exactly what we're going to help you with today.
So, now that we understand the struggles, let's talk about how to build confidence and overcome the fear of speaking. Stay with us.
Now that we know why people struggle to talk in English, let's focus on solutions. How do you overcome fear and build confidence? Julia, what's the first thing learners should do?
Great question, Jason. The first step is changing your mindset. Many learners think, I need perfect grammar before I speak. But the truth is, you don't. Mistakes are part of learning.
Absolutely. Think about how children learn languages. They don't worry about grammar, they just talk. And people understand them. It's the same with learning English. The more you speak, the better you get.
Yes, and here's a simple trick: focus on communication, not perfection. Your goal is to express yourself, not to sound like a textbook.
I love that. And another way to build confidence is to start with easy conversations. You don't have to jump into a deep discussion on politics. Just start with simple topics like, how was your day? What do you do for work? Nice weather today, isn't it?
Yes, small conversations help you feel comfortable. And another thing, practice speaking daily, even if you're alone.
That's a great tip. You can talk to yourself in English, describe what you're doing, or even read aloud. It helps you get used to speaking without pressure.
And if you're shy, start with voice messages instead of live conversations. Send a short voice note to a friend, or even record yourself. This way, you get used to hearing your own voice in English.
That's a great exercise. Also, let's talk about body language. Did you know that how you stand and breathe affects your confidence?
Oh, for sure. If you're nervous, take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and smile. It tricks your brain into feeling more confident.
I love that. And one more tip, find a speaking partner. Practicing with someone helps you feel more comfortable. You can join online groups, language exchange apps, or local meetups.
Yes! Practicing with real people makes a huge difference. And remember, the more you speak, the easier it gets. Confidence comes with action.
Exactly. So, let's summarize. Change your mindset. Mistakes are okay. Start with small conversations. Practice speaking daily, even alone. Use voice messages if you're shy. Improve body language. Stand tall. Breathe and smile. Find a speaking partner or join a group.
Yes! So now that we know how to build confidence, let's move on to the next step: how to start a conversation with anyone. Stay with us.
All right. Now that we know how to build confidence, let's move on to an important question. How do you start a conversation with anyone? Julia, do you remember a time when starting a conversation felt really difficult for you?
Oh, yes. When I was learning English, I always waited for others to start the conversation because I didn't know what to say first. But later, I learned that starting a conversation is actually very simple.
Exactly. Many people overthink it, but you don't need a perfect opening line. The easiest way to start a conversation is with a simple greeting.
Yes, a simple "Hi, how are you?" or "Hey, nice to meet you" is a great way to start. Most people will respond, and that gives you a chance to continue talking.
That's right. And if you want to make it even smoother, try using your environment to start a conversation. For example, if you're at a coffee shop, you can say, "Wow, the coffee here smells amazing. Have you been here before? I love this place. What's your favorite drink here?"
That's a great tip. Another trick is giving a compliment. People love to hear something nice. You can say, "I love your jacket." "Where did you get it?" "Your English is really good. How did you learn it?"
Yes. Compliments are a great way to make someone feel good and start a natural conversation. And if you're meeting someone for the first time, asking simple questions is the key.
Oh, absolutely. People love talking about themselves. Just ask easy questions like, where are you from? What do you do for work? Are you enjoying the event?
Exactly. And one of my favorites, talk about common interests. If you know someone likes music, you can ask, what kind of music do you like? If they love sports, ask, do you play any sports?
Yes, and the best part is you don't have to talk a lot. Just ask a simple question and let the other person talk.
That's a great point. And remember, starting a conversation is just the first step. Next, we'll talk about how to keep the conversation going naturally. So stay with us. So, we've talked about how to start a conversation, but here's another challenge. How do you keep the conversation going naturally? Julia, have you ever been in a situation where a conversation just stops?
Oh, definitely. Sometimes I'd ask a question, the other person would answer, and then silence. I didn't know what to say next.
That happens to a lot of English learners. But here's the good news. You can keep a conversation going with a few simple tricks. The first one is follow-up questions.
Yes. Instead of just saying, oh, that's nice after someone answers, ask something more. For example, if they say, I like playing soccer, you can ask, how often do you play? If they say, I'm from Spain, you can ask, wow, what's your favorite thing about Spain?
Exactly. The key is showing interest in what the other person says. And another way to do this is by sharing your own experiences.
Right. A conversation shouldn't feel like an interview. If they say, I love traveling, you can say, me too. I visited Thailand last year. Have you been there?
That's a great example. And here's another technique using echo questions. This means repeating part of what they say and turning it into a question. For example, if they say, I love Italian food, you can say, Italian food? What's your favorite dish? If they say, I'm learning English for my job, you can say, oh, for your job. What kind of work do you do?
I love that. It makes the conversation feel natural and engaging. And one more tip, use expressions like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. That sounds interesting. How did you start doing that? Wow, I'd love to hear more about it.
Great advice. And remember, be a good listener. When someone is talking, don't just think about what to say next. Really listen and react to what they say.
Yes. People love talking to someone who listens and responds with interest. And if you ever don't know what to say, just smile, nod, and say, that's really interesting. That keeps the conversation flowing.
Perfect. So, let's summarize, ask follow-up questions. Share your own experiences. Use echo questions. Show interest with expressions. Be a good listener.
Yes, and now that we know how to keep a conversation going, let's move to the next challenge, how to end a conversation politely. Stay with us.
All right, we've learned how to start a conversation, keep it going, and even how to end it politely. But now, let's talk about something really important common mistakes English learners make when talking to people. Julia, have you noticed any common mistakes? All right, we've learned how to start a conversation, keep it going, and even how to end it politely. But now, let's talk about something really important common mistakes English learners make when talking to people. Julia, have you noticed any common mistakes?
Oh, definitely. One big mistake is giving short, one-word answers. If someone asks, do you like music? And you just say, yes, it stops the conversation. Instead, you should add more. Like, yes, I love pop music. What about you?
That's a great point. Another mistake is talking too much about yourself and not asking questions. A conversation should be balanced. It's not just about what you want to say. It's also about listening to the other person.
Exactly. And another mistake is being too afraid of making mistakes. Many learners think, oh no, what if I say something wrong? But the truth is, people don't care if your English isn't perfect. They just care about the conversation.
That's so true. And one more mistake, not making eye contact or using body language. If you look away or don't smile, people might think you're not interested. So even if you're nervous, try to smile and look at the person while talking.
Yes. So let's quickly summarize the common mistakes to avoid giving short, one-word answers. Talking only about yourself, being afraid of making mistakes, avoiding eye contact or not using body language.
Exactly. Avoid these mistakes, and your conversations will feel much more natural. Now, let's move to our final section, practical tips for improving your English conversation skills. Stay with us. All right, Julia. We've talked about how to start and keep a conversation going, but here's another important skill: how to end a conversation politely.
Yes, sometimes we don't know how to say goodbye without being rude, but there are easy and natural ways to end a conversation.
That's right. The first way is thanking the person and giving a reason to leave. For example, "It was really nice talking to you. I have to go now, but I hope we can chat again soon. I really enjoyed our conversation, but I need to get back to work. Let's talk again sometime."
Those are great. Another way is to make future plans before ending the conversation. It was great meeting you. Let's catch up again soon. I'd love to continue this conversation another time. Maybe we can grab a coffee next week?
Yes! And if you're at an event or party, you can say, "I won't keep you any longer, but it was great talking to you. I see someone I need to say hello to, but I really enjoyed our chat."
Those are all polite and natural ways to end a conversation. The key is to be friendly, smile, and leave on a positive note.
Exactly. So, now that we've covered how to start, continue, and end a conversation, let's wrap up with some final tips for improving English conversation skills. Stay with us. Wow, Julia! We've covered so much today: why people struggle to talk in English, how to start a conversation, keep it going, and even end it politely. Now, let's finish with some final tips and encouragement for our listeners.
Yes, my first tip is practice every day, even in small ways. You don't need a classroom, just talk to yourself, record your voice, or chat with a friend.
Great tip! And my advice is, don't be afraid of mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning. The more you practice, the more natural your conversations will feel.
Absolutely. Also, listen to native speakers, watch movies, listen to podcasts, and pay attention to how conversations flow.
Yes, and most importantly, be confident and enjoy the process. Every conversation you have in English makes you better.
That's right. So, to all our listeners, keep practicing, keep speaking, and remember, you can talk to anyone in English.
Thanks for joining us today. If you found this podcast helpful, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. See you next time.